knows what to whom, but it's true I was his dissertation advisor. I kind of forced him into it, to tell you the truth. Not only kind of, but he had to, well, I don't know, I'm going to that detail. It's between him and me. I might divulge it privately, but not publicly, whatever that means. But he's been, how shall I say, a go-between between Ellul's thought and me all these years. Even if I got to know Ellul, first time I heard him must have been when I was a theological student in France at a convention of the student Christian movement. He gave a talk. I took notes, which I still have, and I kept reading him subsequently. I do remember that from Présence au monde moderne to the Fondement du Droit, that kind of thing, in which my intellectual tastes theologically had not yet materialized, but it seemed to me like it was a voice I had to take into account in formulating my own views of theology, which apparently is what happened when I wrote my first book, The Death of God, and talking about technology. It had, I mean, in my way of thinking, the death of God had something to do with technology, somehow, or whatever, I mean, not cause and effect, but some relationship intellectually. And lo and behold, one day I get a call from Kentucky. Somebody I didn't know. He said, he gives me his name all the way. You don't know me? I said, no, what can I do for you? He's the editor of the journal. He wants an article from me on what? On Ellul. Oh. He says, yes, I want to put together an issue on Jacques Ellul. And how I got interested in Ellul is because of you, because I read your book. What you say about Ellul intrigued me, and I had to go back to him, and this is what happens. That book was subsequently published, that review, that magazine issue was subsequently published in book form. So in some ways I take pride and I rejoice in the fact that I had something to do with the Ellul's thought taking root here, especially since he was totally unknown in France, or not even, he was not appreciated at all, if known, partly because I thought of his official, complicity with Karl Barth, believe it or not, about whom he said, he told me, at least I don't know if he wrote it, but I think he even wrote it. Karl Barth got involved with politics, but he didn't understand anything about politics, you know. That tells a lot. I mean, to me, he quotes Barth more often than he quotes, like, that's my speech tomorrow, Tillich. And the more I got to know Ellul's thought, the more it seemed to me he was, how shall I say, formulating the need for a theology of culture. I never put it this way until, I will never do it until, never would have done it until tomorrow morning. Ellul, to me, at one time I said he was not a theologian like the others. Phrases of, you can hear both ways. He's damning one kind, damning the other. I mean, Ellul's theology is not the kind that helps you to classify with this or that kind, for a very simple reason. And that reason is the fact that he himself, I think, ultimately recognizes as it puts it, that the death of God could not have occurred otherwise than in technological civilization. How do we talk about God when you have no word for it? All those that you have are simply passé. They are no longer valid, outdated. They are. That's the, I mean, I've grown to know Ellul better and better as the years went by. Subsequently, he got me, he asked me to be part of the editorial committee of YV. I met him every 3 months practically for official meetings. We met in Rome practically every year for decades at the Castelli Institute, talking about this and that, even on utopia. The closest anyone else comes to utopia that I know of is Ellul. Although he talks like he does not like technology, he talks like he's anti-utopian par excellence. And what he does not say is even more significant than what he says. Because I've caught him saying, well, if you mean by utopia this, then I'm not against it. If you mean that by technique this, you're not against it. And he does acknowledge the fact that he never said that though technology enslaves us human beings, we could not master it. That's the hopeful side of Ellul, which I'm afraid sometimes many of his disciples tend to forget about, and they turn him into a sort of a technophobic hero of something, which you have to hear that side of it too. It's true. Technology, how shall I say, technique is nothing more technological than the human being's capacity for putting into words everything that's around them. But that those words have got to be time and again revised, changed, overhauled, restructured. For him, that's why he talks about the holy. For him, there is no, I mean, even the notion of church really ultimately is quite, if not superfluous, at least secondary for him. So I don't know, I'm beating around the bush a little bit, simply to say that I've learned more about what theology is about than I have from him, someone who officially is not a theologian, but is not like the other theologians, who in fact is more interested in what would be called a theology of culture, which reminds me of his kind of kinship in that respect with Ellul, of course, with Tillich. The only other person I know that was involved in culture in the theological field of some kind of outstanding dimension, theologically speaking, is of course Tillich. I consider them to be both theologians of culture, with a major, they agree with a major difference. They both agree for the same reason that they separate one from another. They both say language is symbolic. They both would say ultimately that nothing is more symbolic than the literal. Indeed, Tillich goes so far as to say all language is symbolic except for one statement, namely God as being itself, which as all the Tillichians have pronounced because that it's one thing or the other, it can't be both. Tillich says both things, and until I understand today there are scholars who, Tillich scholars who say he didn't quite mean it, or he meant it, he changed his mind so that all language is symbolic, even that statement is symbolic. Well, okay. But it's in print. It is symbolic. That's what makes the difference between Tillich and Ellul, who doesn't fall back on any kind of philosophical presupposition like God is being itself. He never knew, I mean, he has no inkling for philosophy really. But his philosophy, his theology of culture acknowledges its root as being language. Proof is, I think, instead of God being itself, they would talk about God in including act of prayer. That's Ellul's originality. Prayer, he says, anybody in the foxhole can pray to God. The book makes no difference.
Okay, thank you very much.